and Joseph learned that their son was determined to quit school, they tried to talk him out of it. Francis would not budge. Don't you wish you had that choice, Joshua? I don't think so. He had been a great reader since he was 6, and now he continued to study on his own. Using a candle or sitting next to the fireplace, Francis would read long after dark. During the day, he did odd jobs around the farm. When he was 13, Francis became an apprentice to a smithy. The area around Birmingham, England was well known for its metal workers. Thousands of men made buckles, buttons, and different metal pieces like the ones that attached a sword to a belt. As an apprentice, he would get paid 7 to 10 shillings a week to spend years learning this metal work from an older man. Francis would work for as much as 13 hours a day, hammering the metal and heating it in the furnace so that he could shape it. One day when Francis came into his parents' house, he could hear his mother singing one of the psalms. He walked into the family room to find her sweeping the floor with quick, sure motions. She smiled when she saw Francis. "Oh, it's you, Francis," she said breathlessly. "Quickly, line the chairs and help me. A Baptist shoemaker is going to be having a prayer meeting here in a few minutes." Francis was used to helping his mother get ready for the many meetings that they had at their house. "A Baptist shoemaker?" Francis asked his mother. "Yes, he travels around and has arrived here in our neighborhood. I invited him to come here for a prayer meeting." Francis was not surprised. Their home had always been open to those coming through that loved God. Francis helped his mother put out psalm books and move some of the furniture to make room just as the first of the neighbors arrived. Before long, the small room filled up and all the seats were taken. As the shoemaker stood and talked about the Bible, Francis realized that there was more to religion than what he had. He wanted the comfort that this man seemed to have. Everyone was praying when Francis lifted up his own heart to God. "Please, dear God, give me the comfort that I need," Francis prayed. Suddenly, Francis felt happy. This must be what other people experience. He was a child of God. As he lay in his bed that night, he hummed pieces of the hymns that his mother had taught him. He was just so happy, and God seemed near. The next morning, long before the sun came up, Francis was dressed and on his way to work. As he hammered the pieces on his workbench, doubt started to come in his mind. Was he really a child of God? God's comfort from the night before seemed to be gone. Where was his happiness? Francis sighed. If only he could be as sure of his religion as the Methodists were. He wanted to serve God, but how did he get through to him? Francis was thrilled to visit the Methodist societies. These meetings were different than the Anglican services that he went to on Sunday for communion. The Methodists went or belonged to the Anglican church, but they had their house churches during the week. The Methodists believed that people could be sure they were children of God, and they got really happy in their services. They would sing their hymns loudly and call out, "Amen," when the preacher was preaching.
Amen.
When they knelt to pray, there was no peeking around. Some of them would cry, and it seemed that God talked to them. Francis was 15 and still searching. "Francis, why the frown and the sighs this morning?" asked a friend in the shop. Francis's brow was furrowed as he answered, "I was just thinking about the Methodist." His friend laughed. "That is enough to make anyone frown. Those Methodists are a really strange lot, aren't they?" Francis looked confused. Yes, I mean, no. Well, maybe. When I went to the Methodist meetings, I really enjoyed it. It's true that they look plain. Their men sit on one side and the women on the other. And nobody has any jewelry or feathers in their hats. So maybe some would call them strange, but what they have, I want. His friend whistled. "I call them strange. My father said that when those Methodist brothers, John and Charles Wesley, came to town a few years ago, everybody called them strange. A mob came and tried to run them out. How would you like to make people mad wherever you went?" Francis nodded and said, "I know John and Charles Wesley and many other Methodist preachers have made people mad by saying you need to know you are a child of God and that you can live without sinning. I've heard the stories. The mobs have pulled rotten turnips out of the gutters and thrown them at the men. They've thrown eggs and stones at these Methodists and dragged them through the streets. Once they threatened to bash John's brains out, and when Charles tried to preach, the townspeople turned on the bells so they could not be heard. I've heard the stories about how the townspeople in Wednesbury were so angry that they burned homes, smashed out windows, and hacked holes in the furniture of the Methodists there. Wow. Francis, then why would you want what these people have? Francis turned to his friend and looked intently into his eyes. I heard of a preacher's wife who was expecting a baby, and she was beat until she lost her baby. She and her husband, John Nelson, still kept the love of God during all of this. I want that love of God. I want to know I'm his child. Francis's friend shrugged and turned back to his work, saying, do whatever you want, but if it were me, I would stay away from those Methodist meetings if it brought me so much sadness. I think I would just go see a bull baiting or a fight. But Francis did not stay away. Oh.